So actually, we launched a year ago in Cannes. Obviously this time last year, and yeah, we've had a great year. We've grown. I've grown our team by 50% in that year, which is obviously very exciting. We've grown the proportion of revenue coming from content-led partnerships across the BBC, and we see this as a really exciting area, and we think we've got great stuff to offer as content creators, and obviously with the BBC's proud heritage in making, in particular, video content, which we're really keen to expand in the coming year, and that's where we've seen some of our most effective content campaigns. So we have a great website which has very many, 1.5 billion in English page views a month, which is absolutely fantastic. We've got a big audience so on bbc.com, so we create digital content which lives on our site, aligned to various different sections, so our feature sections and our sports section as well. So obviously it's very important that we get eyeballs to our content there. We obviously have social channels as well where we promote the content, and plus we've got a TV channel, so we can create great native content and then run versions of that on BBC World News as well, which is really exciting. So it's about getting it everywhere, and we create brand films on behalf of our partners. We create native content, and of course there's the opportunity to sponsor our fantastic BBC editorial as well. So there's a real range of different content partnerships that we have, and continue to grow with our partners.
How do you approach the question of transparency, authenticity of your editorial and your sponsored or native, however, and how is that presented and identified?
Yeah, so that is an incredibly important issue, as you might imagine, for us, and we have very many checks and balances within the BBC to ensure that we get that right. I mean, we have, so there's the opportunity to sponsor our editorial, and that's clearly labelled in association with. We create branded content which directly talks to a brand's key message, what they're wanting to talk about, their products and their services, and that's labelled advertisement feature. And then when we're doing content which we're using their data and expertise for, or access to individuals, but presenting it in more of an editorial style, we call that partnered content. It's presented by the brands, and we have a definitions page which defines all the different types of content that the brands can associate with. But actually, it's so important for us that we did a study at the start of the year called Science of Engagement, which looked at the difference in brand impact for brands on clear versus unclear labelling, and that demonstrated overwhelmingly that actually audiences really value properly labelled content. They want to know who's making it, who's co-creating it, and so long as it's good and that's clear, then they're really comfortable with having good quality content that's commercial on our site. So I mean, if you take video in particular, which is an area that I'm really going to make sure that we focus on in the next year, even more so than we have been. We think that's a huge area of strength for us, but actually video isn't the same everywhere. Depending on where you're consuming the content, the video format needs to be slightly different. I think with my sort of news editorial experience, we went on a journey from taking TV video and then putting it online, and actually it needs to be different. You need to develop formats that work properly. Vertical video, so when we think about a campaign, we think about how's that going to appear on our own site, how are we going to promote that socially. We've got a new product called Tend to Watch, which our colleagues in editorial are launching in the autumn, which is a sort of a digital bulletin of the most important news and some feature content that's happening that day that you can swipe through in a very native to app format. And we're going to be able to integrate some of our commercial content, clearly labelled of course, into that, and we think that that's really exciting as well. So thinking about how you tell video stories when not everyone's listening to the audio, they've got the phone that way round, how do you really successfully make that work and people engage with it?
How do you define native advertising in the linear feed, in the cable program, if you will?
So you're right, it's not completely new. We have a good example of a series that we do called Horizons, which DuPont was a sponsor of for many years. Company split into two different companies last year. They're no longer sponsoring the program, but we created brand films that ran in the centre break of that program, so that you got the editorial content they sponsored, which under the BBC's rules, there wasn't any reference to them, and it wasn't about what the work they did. But then you can create what I see as TV native, which is content that has an editorial style and approach is labeled as commercial content, obviously to be transparent to audiences, but actually is telling the same kind of or similar stories to what the editorial content is, but sort of clearly delineated. So I think the opportunity for us is really, good content-led marketing is about good storytelling. So how do we tell those stories, and then let's tell those in the commercial airtime that we've got also on TV, and use that to drive engagement to the digital formats as well.